Ubisoft has faced a giant failure when it comes to Skull and Bones. It's a game that they called a quadruple A title, and to top it off, they even said that we should be grateful it was only priced at $70. But hilariously enough, it is now getting wrecked by Assassin's Creed, which has been a direct comparison to this game, and the player numbers for it have absolutely skyrocketed. I have a few things to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, follow me on social media, and consider supporting through Patreon or through YouTube memberships. Now, of course, Skull and Bones release did not do well for Ubisoft. This is a game that is 10 years in the making. They were really expecting to be a home run, but unfortunately for them, it is absolutely sunk to the bottom of the ocean because Skull and Bones hasn't gotten off to a great start, coming out of the gates with middling critic reviews and even worse user reviews. While it can be difficult to put too much stock in user reviews these days, I would argue that it can be difficult to put too much stock in critic reviews. The general feels of dissatisfaction are also being felt in the game's player numbers, as a recent report has claimed that Skull and Bones has failed to crack the 1 million player mark, even though Ubisoft offered everyone an 8-hour free trial, and I did recently talk about this in a video, but this really was a good enough evidence to prove, okay, that this game was doing terribly. All of the reviews are awful. Headed on over to Metacritic. As you can see, the critic score is at a 60. That's not great. That also is not terrible, but audiences feel very differently because the user score is sitting at a measly 3.6, and of course, it has just plummeted. It originally started at a 4, then it went to a 3.8 and sat there. Now it is all the way down to a 3.6. People are not happy that they gave us this $70 experience where in a pirate game you can't swim. There's not seamless boarding mechanics to other people's ships. Unfortunately, the game is really buggy and really glitchy. It is just not an experience that people expected. People really thought that this was going to be of the highest quality, and I completely understand why, simply because of how much Ubisoft has hyped it up and how they called it a quadruple A game and how they said it deserved a higher price tag than $70, even though that's already insane. But of course now, funny enough, despite them failing to meet 1 million players and the tanking user scores, people are actually headed back to a significantly better game, Assassin's Creed Black Flag. And this is a game that released in 2013, so this year it turns 11 years old, and there are thousands of people who are flocking to it now that we've got this terrible Skull and Bones game. And don't get me wrong, I'm always someone who says go and play the better version of a game. Like with Suicide Squad, this same exact situation happened. Suicide Squad released, it was absolutely panned, people hated it, and then individuals flocked to the other Arkhamverse games, the real Arkhamverse games, and at this point in time, Suicide Squad, at least on Steam, has under 1,000 players concurrently, and where, you know, Arkham Knight had 6,000 when Suicide Squad had 700, Origins had 4,000 when Suicide Squad had 700, and then City and Asylum were less, they were 2,000 and under, but they still beat out Suicide Squad. It's absolutely hilarious to see this happening, but honestly, it's very good to see this happening because these better games deserve attention. If you want a really good pirate experience, go and play something like Assassin's Creed Black Flag. I know that when Black Flag came out, it was a little bit controversial just because it was so different, but at the same time, it was a really good product for what these developers decided to create, and seeing the player count rise by 200% because this awful game comes out just proves what people really want from games. And yes, this is all Ubisoft because, of course, Ubisoft does own Assassin's Creed. Ubisoft owns Skull and Bones, but it is a good situation still, because even though you might be buying a copy of Black Flag, you are still showing Ubisoft we don't want live service, we don't want this garbage that they're deeming quadruple A when it realistically isn't. You are proving to them that, wow, you are willing to play a game like this It just happened to be that Skull and Bones was a bad release. And of course, since this happened and outlets started posting this on X, people have been roasting the Skull and Bones team and the game in general. People remembered the GOAT of pirate games. I've got to be honest, I have not played a better game than Black Flag. Now, of course, over the years, I haven't sought out pirate games, but I've never been opposed to them, and I feel a lot of people also have said the same thing over the past few weeks, that they wanted to give Skull and Bones a try. I initially wanted to give Skull and Bones a try, and then I saw the betas and the trailers, and it didn't look anything like what it looked like several years ago when they first started teasing it. I was disappointed, and I'm glad at this point that I didn't waste my money on it. People are saying things like, we need the remaster now. We have heard rumors that they have been wanting to remaster some of the older Assassin's Creed games if they have Black Flag in the works, which who knows. And if this came out, I do really think that people would support it. And I do think that if they have it in the works, they really need to rush and put it out soon. But people are saying things like, I'm going to be honest, I also played it again, really hoping the news about them doing a remake is true, but it still holds up pretty well. I personally think it only needs a remaster. I think that I would much prefer them to not do remakes of any of these games, because we see how awful remakes can end up. And at the same time, I just think that the market is flooded with remasters and remakes right now, but I definitely feel like remasters are okay because it's still the original content, but they're just slightly upgrading it when it comes to like visuals and audio. But I don't think that this is a game that really needs a full-blown remake. That's at least my opinion. People are saying things like, task failed successfully, congratulations on your epic fail. I pre-ordered Skull and Bones and deleted the game after a few hours. You are a ship, not a pirate in Skull and Bones. Waste of money and time, nothing else. In my opinion, it's actually pretty sad to see this happen. There were a lot of people who wanted this game to be good, and I completely agree. I don't want games to come out and for them to be bad. I want them to release. I want them to be awesome. I want them to be really good experiences, but unfortunately, you have to be extremely skeptical when it comes to new video games, and Skull and Bones was a massive failure for Ubisoft. It'll be interesting to see if we ever get really any player count updates from the Skull and Bones team, if we ever get any information on the sales for this game, except for maybe them coming out and saying it was an absolute disaster and it was a disappointment, much like what happened with Warner Brothers and Suicide Squad recently. Only time will tell, but for now, that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments section down below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.